Hey, it's Lowry Smith of the Commander Smiths here with Celes Rune Knight. Building this deck today. I need about 30, 40 cuts from what I have, and we'll have a deck. Seems like a really cool one. Definitely has some combos that I'm not going to be addressing today. I think people are talking about this for CEDH, and I can definitely see some lines that are really, really good. I'm not going that route. I'm kind of going with plus one counters and just having benefits off of those. There's some reanimation, and they already get big pretty quick. So, and it seems like it's going to be right up my alley. Um, but let's talk about Celes. It's one in a red and a white and a black for a 4/4 human wizard knight. Whenever it enters, discard any number of cards, then draw that many cards plus one, which is huge. I'm gonna admit that plus one is huge. Secondarily, whenever one or more other creatures you control enter the, from if one or more of them entered from the graveyard or was cast from a graveyard, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. So the way that I read that is, one or more means like if you mass reanimate everything, everything just gets one counter. It's not for each creature. But if you're able to do it incrementally, you're gonna put those 1/1 counters on there pretty quick. And so either any sort of reanimation or casting it from the graveyard counts. And that's pretty nice. And also, it doesn't have to be just your graveyard. It can be an opponent's graveyard. It can be persist. It could be undying, although undying doesn't really work with this because you can't have 1/1 counters on your creatures for that to happen. And so if it just doesn't work. And so, but Celeste seems really, really cool. Uh, let's get into we are the Commander Smiths, and we do a weekly podcast. Most of the time, Monday nights. We're going to be a little iffy here in July, but you can still check us out. You can find us on any audio platform that you so choose. You can, if you like this content or other things like a podcast, or we talk about the secret layers. We talk about just making sure, we do a lot of stuff. So check them out. Shorts. Um, we have a Discord. We give out proxies. You can see some of the proxies and some of the proxies I made before we were making them. And so we have a Discord, a Patreon, all that kind of jazz. We've been going for 7 years. We have a lot of content. If you're just joining us, you got about a year's worth of stuff. Have fun with that. So right there, Celeste is really cool. Let's kind of get into the deck and how it's going to break down. Let's go like that. And then first off, we're going to go with just the cards that work with both Neheb Dread Horde Champion of drawing and mana, but it's basically trample 5/4. Whenever Neheb deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, you may discard any number of cards. If you do, draw that many cards and add that much red mana until end of turn. You don't lose the mana as steps and phases end. So this is a card that allows you to kind of like self-wheel and check what you want to throw, what you want to keep, and you can really sculpt a hand really nicely this way. It's kind of like Celeste. It's a backup. It's a secondary. It's something that's consistently going to be able to happen because you're putting 1/1 counters on them, making them bigger. Trample happens, discard the cards, and it just kind of feeds off itself. So I think there's a really cool card in the deck. I'm going to be excited for that. Staff of Completion. Cool artifact that allows you to destroy target permanent you own, which really is a sacrifice, quote unquote. And that allows you to sacrifice any creature that you can kind of bring back or that you want to reanimate. And that actually works really well in here. Also, you can add mana, draw a card, and then proliferate is another big thing. You have the 1/1 counters, just tap, pay the life, proliferate, everything gets another counter. You get a lot of different effects going on. It's gonna do some work there. Now, this one I'm unsure about, but Hazardous Monument, red creature spells cost one less, and whenever you cast any creature spell, you can discard a card to draw a card. Um, and so I really do like the discard to draw a card effect. It's not looting, but I don't know what it's called. Um, the red loot, but I think there's some potential there. The problem that I have is that right now the deck is like 20% red. So that cost reduction isn't going to do enough, I'm afraid. So right now I'm gonna cut it, and then if I feel like I move more into a red direction, I can add that back in. But for now, I don't think it's necessarily worth it. Fable of the Mirror Breaker, getting the 2/2 that you can put more counters on that makes the treasures. It's going to help keep it around. Then you have that discard draw effect, which is super nice. And then also on that backside, making copies of any ETB creatures, any creatures, um, it just that have the benefit. It's perfect. So there, I think this card's gonna be great in there. Getting into the draw part. Oh yeah, share, like, subscribe. Thank you. Also, if you're not watching live, which a lot of you don't watch at like 1.5, 2 times speed, I don't talk that fast, so check it out. Garna, Blood Fist of Keld. It's a 4/3. Whenever a creature you control dies, draw a card if it was attacking. Otherwise, each opponent loses a life. And that's a really cool card. This is an aggressive deck. You're putting 1/1 counters on things. You want to, just get going. And if somebody can kill your stuff, might as well draw off of it and then be able to reanimate those cards anyway. So it should be nice to draw off of that. And also, again, if you're just sacrificing to sacrifice, everybody's taking, 1 damage. It has some good potential. Um, so I like that one. Something kind of similar, Frenzy. Wow. War Host's Frenzy. 3 mana instant, a black to kick it, and then creatures you control get +2/+0 until end turn. If the spell was kicked, whenever a creature you control that dies this turn, draw a card. So it doesn't matter if it's attacking or not, right? Whenever a creature you control dies, so you can cast this, kick it, and then start sacrificing creatures to draw more cards. 4 mana is probably a bit for that if I wasn't attacking, and it's this and one other instant in the deck because I want to just be reanimating or casting stuff from the graveyard. And so I think for 4 mana, I'd rather just have kind of a bomb. And I'm not going to add in like the one ring or anything. And that's just clearly better. So I'll probably cut this one off the bat. A Bragone, Soldier of Miletus. This is the type of card that I'm going for in this deck. But 2 mana, 2/2 Vigilance. I always think that it has flying, but it really doesn't. That looks like wings. I don't know. But whenever you cast a spell that targets it, put a 1/1 counter on it. Not a lot that's happening in there with that, but tap, remove a 1/1 counter from Bragone and draw a card. So basically, it's going to get bigger with Celes, and then with the Vigilance, it's going to allow you to like block, and then before it's your turn, tap, remove a counter, draw a card. For 2 mana, that's going to be a lot. That should be a lot. I really like that in here. Cavalier of Flame, 5 mana. Creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain haste until end of turn. So it's a nice aggressive card in here. Whenever it ETBs, discard any number of cards and draw that many cards. So it's not that +1. And when I'm testing out the cards, there's a huge difference between adding that one and not. And then whenever it dies, it deals X damage to each opponent for as many lands cards that are in your graveyard. You got a bunch of wheel type effects in here. You should have handful of land in there at least. So then you have Dusk Legion Duelist. Whenever you put a 1/1 counter on it, you get to draw a card. You do it once each turn. It also has Vigilance, so feels like a second Bragone. I like it. Esper Sentinel, extra good in here, right? 1/1, as you add counters to it, it makes it harder and harder to pay for you to just draw cards. So it's perfect in here. Uh, Fear of Missing Out, ETBs, discard a card to draw a card, and then whenever it attacks, if you have Delirium, you get another attack step. Let's first time each turn. If there are 4 or more cards among untap target creature, untap one creature. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase. So at least one of your big beefy ones are going to be able to attack again. I'm trying to mash as many creatures in there for the reanimation effect. So there's a lot of creatures in here already. Oh, you know what I need to do? Let me. Boop, boop, boop. I'm gonna post the deck list is in the chat space. You can go check that out on Moxfield. Follow us there. We do all our deck lists there. We've been on there for years at this point. There's a lot of decks there, so check them out. Fetid Gargantua is the next one. 5 mana, 4/4. It has adapt. It doesn't matter. But whenever you put a 1/1 counter on Fetid Gargantua, you may draw 2 cards and lose 2 life. It's there's a neat one. There's a neat one. So Celes is out. Reanimate this from the graveyard. Put a 1/1 counter on it. Draw 2 cards. Lose 2 life, and you got a 5/5. Like that's big. Midnight Reaper. Whenever you have a non-token creature die, you get to lose a life and draw a card, or take a damage, draw a card. And there's a handful of cards that care about one creatures with 1/1 counters on them that die, and that's one of them. Nikara Lair Scavenger, but they're like 4 mana, and I just I have I have a lot in that 2 and 3 spot, and I did not want to kind of go up to 4. So I kind of worked with Midnight Reaper. You have a lot of options at this 3 spot and 4 spot. So whatever you would want, I'd say choose that. It's not as on theme as some other cards, but just trying to hit the curve a little bit quicker. So Nurkana, same thing. Creature dies with a 1/1 counter on it. It could be a token in this case, but then you get to draw a card, lose a life. It has menace. One of the good sack outlets out there, Viscera Seer, sacrifice a creature, scry a card. The nice thing is it's a free sack outlet. Same thing with Woe Strider, sack a creature, scry. And then, but the nice thing is it creates a token that you can put 1/1 counters on it, and also it can come from the graveyard, so you can discard it willy-nilly as well. And then the best ultimate sack outlet, I like this one, Yawgmoth, sack a creature, pay life, draw a card. Creature gets -1/-1, and one of your opponent's counters. And then it also has proliferate attached to it. This card's crazy. Woo. So that's an auto include for sure. Faithless Looting, just cheap. Draw, discard a card, or 2. Draw 2, discard 2. Flashback. So you can discard it if you wish to be able to do it later. It's nice all around. Oh man, throat got really dry. All right, Tawashi Guidebot. Whenever it enters, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. It could be this, could be something else. And then you can pay for, tap, draw cards. The ability costs 1 less to activate for each modified creature you control. So you're tapping this down for free, essentially, in this deck. With Celeste and this in play, you're going to have other cards. So, Mr. Gutsy from the Fallout sets. Whenever you cast an aura, that part doesn't matter. The first part doesn't matter. There are no auras, hardly any equipment. But whenever Mr. Gutsy dies, create X junk tokens, where X is the number of 1/1 counters on it. So that's pretty cool. The big thing is I have there's an angel, like whenever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on it. First time that happens, you get to draw a card each turn. And that this is kind of the replacement for it because I don't have one. It's I don't know. Well, it'll come. So right now it's likely just gonna make it, but once I get that card, it'll come in. So I'm gonna favor that probably more than I should. Stormclaw Rager, pay 1, sack a creature, put a 1/1 counter on it, and draw a card. Activate only as a sorcery. It's like a bad Yawgmoth, essentially. Really bad Yawgmoth, but it's cool in that regard too. It's just trying to draw more cards. Magus of the Wheel, um, you know, just wheeling and dealing. The problem with this card is that you don't get to choose what you're discarding. It just has to be your whole hand, everybody's hand, and everybody's drawing. And so I didn't put Wheel of Fortune or Wheel of Misfortune in here for that reason. Um, and I haven't in some test runs where I cut it down to around a regular deck. I haven't needed wheel effects. So I think we're gonna cut this for now. Brass's Tunnel Grinder. When it ETBs, discard any number of cards and draw that many cards. And then there's like a backside. I really don't care. It's nice. Whenever taps for a red, whenever you cast a permanent spell produced by this, Discover X, where X is the spell's mana value. Like, that's nice, but it's here just for the discard and draw effect. Oh boy. All right. Sensei's Divining Top, just one of the things this is one that I might cut from. It's really nice at the early game because I don't have a lot of early cantrips. I have Faithless Looting, this, and Night's Whisper. And that's generally not enough. I like to be in that 5, 6 range for cantrips. And but then later on, once I hit Celeste, it does not matter. Like, you're just discarding and drawing a bunch of cards, and they're just so much better. But we'll see from there. Night's Whisper, draw 2, lose 2. Um, let's see here. Last one for the card advantage, but Rakdos the Muscle. 5 mana, 6/5 flying trample. Whenever you sacrifice another creature, exile cards equal to its mana value from the top of target player's library. Could be you, could be somebody else. Until your next end step, you may play those cards, and mana of the type can be any to cast those spells. And then sacrifice another creature. Rakdos the Muscle gains indestructible. Tap it once each turn. Um, so this is a neat one where you just it doesn't go to the graveyard. It's not like that's a little bit of my problem with the card is like I want to fill up the graveyard and cast it from there. But if you're just seeing more cards, it's not a bad thing. It is a sack outlet. There's a lot of positives. It's a big beater, flying trample for 5, easily recurable. There's a lot of nice stuff there with it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 17, 18, 19, 20. So we have 20. I'm gonna try and cut a few from here. Like I said, I want a few of the cantrips, and I just have the 3, I think. Faithless Looting. So I like this amount, and so we'll try and stick with that. And then when it comes to sacrificing, we have Rakdos, Yawgmoth, Woe, Viscera. And like I kind of like the looting effects. So I want Cavalier of Flame. I want the Tunnel Grinder. I want is there anything else that I really, really want there? So these are my sacrifice outlets. Like, you need enough sacrifice outlets as well in this deck. You want a bit of a balance, and so there's going to be a lot more tweaking as it kind of goes on. The other thing is I really like it with when I have the effect of whenever a 1/1 counter is placed on something, you get to draw or have something happen. So I like Fetid Gargantuan, that feels like an auto. Sentinels in, Dust Legion Duelist, and Burgone for that reason. Um, I like some of these death triggers because I do have sacrifice outlets. So I kind of want these as well. Them being at 3 mana is really nice as well. There is a bonus if something can come down before I cast Celes. So that's really important. Some things I want to be able to keep and get down before. Some things I want to keep, and some things I want to just bin into the graveyard. Um, and so I like Mr. Gutsy for that reason, but Taushi Guidebot is in trouble for that reason because it's at 4 and it's competing with the spot of Celes. And the other one is as well for this. So I think we'll keep Mr. Gutsy. I like the little sack outlets. They work really nice with these 3 to 4. Not sure, but one of these will probably eventually go. And then we have a little bit of some of the new ones. Like I said, Taushi Guidebot it's not like a threat. It's only drawing me a card. I think Guidebot is kind of out of here. The other thing I like I like this better than Rager, but it's competing against Celeste in that spot. Oh man, I might have to go blow my nose for a hot second. And I do like fear of missing out. Like I don't it doesn't really do anything that I really care about, but maybe it's fitting into the cantrip spot. Let's see here right away. So if I'm looking at this and I just want like 3 out of these 4, what would I prefer? I don't know. Okay, so we know that our sack outlets, we probably wanna go 3 or 4, and we probably wanna go 3 out of 4 for this as well. Um, so I'm just kinda looking at these 2 and, like, I like them, but I don't. This is also a sack outlet. I don't think that competes. Let's look at the sack outlet ones. Alright. Might be dying. I don't know. I think Garden's gone. I think being 4 mana hurts it dramatically. Um, sack outlet spot, we have 4. Like I was almost saying we wanna get that down to 3, but if we get Storm Rager in there as well, it's just a really bad Yawgmoth. I like Rakdos because you get to see more cards and it is a beater. Woe Strider, beat it at 3 mana. I don't love it, but I like that it can bring itself back, and I like that it creates a goat, Viscera Seer. I mean, Rager is just worse than those 4. So let's cut those. So we just cut 1, 2, 3, 3 cards from there. We're down to 17. Don't hate it. Let me go figure something out real quick. Be back. All right. Hopping back. All right. Sorry about that. Let's see here. All right. On to the manas. Let's go. Toot, toot, toot. All right. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 16. We don't really want to cut a lot, so let's talk about this real quick. The Warring Triad from the commander deck. Precon, Flying Trample Haste, tap to mill a card, add a mana. It's only a creature if you have 8 or more cards in your graveyard. And so it's a 5/5 beast. So you can reanimate it, all that kind of stuff. It should be good. Should be good. Axe Guard Artisan, whenever you put a 1/1 counter on this, once per turn, you get to make a treasure. It's pretty cool at 2 mana. Like I said, I like to fit stuff underneath Celes before I start discarding. Same thing with Knight of the White Orchid. Um, Also with the 1/1 counters, making that first strike more and more formidable blocker. And so we like that as well. Oftentimes, I did add some bounce lands into the land base so that that helps you hit the Knight of the White Orchid because you just automatically have less lands. Um, so there's that. Milliken, tap to mill a card, add a mana. So it's just a worse Warring Triad, probably. Ornithopter of Paradise. Most of the time, this just stays an O2 that can tap for any color as a flyer, but putting 1/1 counters on this, it can become a little threat. Pawn of Ulamog, you have non-token creatures dying. You get to make an Eldrazi spawn token that can sack itself, but also making like token creatures adds more 1/1 counters to them. You're going more wide. I tried to avoid making this really a token deck just because it can get really messy. And if I'm making a token deck, I just want it to be kind of a token deck. I don't want to be adding 1/1 counters on like 100 cards or creatures. So, try to limit the amount of tokens that I was doing. So, Pawn of Ulamog, same thing with Sifter of Skulls, just makes a 1/1 Eldrazi that can sack for colorless. Space Marine Scout, I kinda really intrigued with this card in here, but 3 mana, 2/1, first strike vigilance. So it's really good blocker that doesn't tap. And then whenever it enters, go get a planes, put into play if you have less cards or lands in play. So same thing with Knight of the White Orchid. This should really work. I like the first strike on there. There's a lot of cards in here with vigilance as well, and I'm all for it. Surly Badgesaur. Kind of forgot that I had this in here, but if you discard a creature card, put a 1/1 counter on it, kind of on theme, right? Whenever you discard a land card, create a treasure, and then whenever you discard a non-creature, non-land, this fights. It's a great card in discard decks. The question is this a discard deck? And there, it's like halfway there. Um, and I think there's some really good potential there. I like it at the four spot. I'm fine if it's competing. Like it has to be a four spot has to be powerful enough to make me go, maybe I don't want to cast Celes as fast as possible, or I have a reanimation spell that I'd be happy to bring back later. But drop this, then Celes and value. Pitiless Plunder. Whenever another creature you control dies, create a treasure token. So very similar to the Eldrazi tokens being created. Arcane Signet for that mana. Crucible of Worlds. You're discarding a lot of cards. Bringing back lands from your graveyard is great. Mind Stone. Taps are colorless. Can tap and sack to draw a card. And then you got Soul Ring for that mana. Runaway Steamkin. Whenever you cast a red spell, put a 1/1 counter on it. If you have three or if you have less than three, and then you can remove 3 counters from it to add 3 red. And so this starts building up, but you kind of want to use it once it's at 3 so that casting red spells works. And it's been really cool. And then Scholar of New Horizons, ETBs with a counter on it. Tap, remove a counter from a permanent to go get a plains card, put it into play or your hand. That's also a cool one. Like I said, don't want to get rid of much of the mana, so we're not going to try too hard there. Protection. Let's see here. Yep, right there. Bulwark Ox ETBs put a 1/1 counter on something, and then you can sacrifice this to give creatures with 1/1 counters on it, hexproof and indestructible. Also has saddle. I don't really care. Whenever this creature is attacked while saddled, put a 1/1 counter. Oh, it's not an ETB. All right, that's perfectly fine. Um, generally, Celeste is just putting 1/1 counters on everything, so it doesn't matter. Perfect. Selfless Spirit. I liked it so much. I wanted one that didn't care about 1/1 counters. Lightning Greaves, Boots for the protection. Sack Outlet for Fanatical Devotion. It's an enchantment. Sacrifice a creature, regenerate target creature. Great for those. Number one, it's a free sack outlet. Perfect in the deck. Secondarily, if you want to keep some of your creatures around, that's how you regenerate them from, anything but a damnation, essentially. But again, if you have reanimation in your hand, you don't really care. You'll sack everything for benefit and then bring it back. Don't care what was destroyed. It's kind of a willy-nilly deck sometimes, I think. Eldrazi Monument. Creatures you control have +1/+1, flying indestructible, and then at the beginning of upkeep, you sacrifice a creature. So it's a slow sacrifice, but protecting your stuff makes it more beneficial. I just really like this card when you have a creature deck. So we'll see if there. Then Cauldron Haze, creatures, choose any number of target creatures. You can even pick your opponents. Most likely you won't, but each of those creatures gains persist until end of turn. So if it dies and it doesn't have a -1/-1 counter on it, it comes back with a -1/-1 counter on it. And if Celeste is in play, you get to also put a 1/1 counter on it. They both exist, and then they go away. Um, that is how math works, and it's kind of cool. You also have Cauldron of Souls. um, which is a persist card for everything and anything. I just I had enough cards in here that were just like one ones or zero zeros at a certain point, and I just felt like I didn't want it. But I think that if you can have your creatures survive, because here's the thing, because of timing rules, they come into play with a -1/-1 counter on it, and then this triggers. So if it's a 1/1 and it puts a -1/-1 on it, it will still trigger stuff, but it'll die before the 1/1 counter gets put on it. And so a lot of decks don't care. Like it'll be really good in most of these decks. In mine though, so like Scholar, um, this one doesn't probably count because enters the battlefield with, so they're kind of competing, so they'd probably still end up, it wouldn't die. Um, but this does end up killing a lot of my decks. Runaway Steamkin, um, it'd kill Space Marine. You know, I don't have to prove it. Milliken, you get the point. So this is the small part of protection. It doesn't really matter. You do have a lot of reanimation, so the protection part isn't as necessary. Um, I do really like it being like creatures that I can sacrifice and bring back. I like the the haste that these two give, but maybe I don't need to care about being as aggressive with these. I haven't even thought about cutting these yet. I almost always keep both, one or both. But I think we can cut these. Interesting. All right. And like I said, I think Cauldron Haze can probably go away as well. I have enough one toughness things that kind of get knocked off by it. So that's where we're at. Indestructible, indestructible, regenerate, indestructible with a sack outlet. Good there. Let's go with some removal. All right. Damning Verdict. It's in the other precon. But destroy all creatures with no counters on them. It's pretty cool in a 1/1 counter deck. Attrition, it's a sack outlet. Destroy target non-black creature. Should also be pretty nice in here. Shine Wind, pretty cool. ETBs with a 1/1 counter on it, and then you can pay a white and a colorless, remove a 1/1 counter from it, destroy target enchantment. You're going to control the enchantment. Also has flying, so a little bit of evasion there, but it's just a way to kind of use the +1/+1 counters. There is Flesh Winder. Nope. There's a black version where it can give creatures -1/-1 until end of turn. That one is also cool. It just didn't make it this far. I'm such a heavy creature deck. Hopeful Initiate. You can pay 3, remove 2 1/1 counters from among creatures you control, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Um, it's a little bit more of a cost, but you get that flexibility of an artifact or enchantment. I think that's pretty crucial. All will be one whenever you put one or more counters on a permanent or player. All will be one deals that much damage to target opponent, creature an opponent controls, or planeswalker an opponent controls. This is a huge game winner in here. Like you have, you know, 6 to 10 creatures. They all get a 1/1 counter on it. You're gonna deal 6 to 10 damage. Do it again. Do it again. You're gonna run the game over pretty quick. Constable of the Realms, whenever you put a 1/1 counter on it, exile up to one other target non-land permanent until Constable leaves the battlefield. So put 1/1 counter on everything, exile something they control, do it again, do it again. 5 mana is not terrible. It's a nice, I generally, in some of my testing, I'll discard it and then reanimate it later and instantly exile something. So that's the removal right there. Not a lot. And so we don't want to remove a lot, like Wrath, picking things off, being able to deal with artifacts, enchantments, and then targeted removal on creatures. So like there is enough if I'm going to cut anything, it might end up being attrition and or shine wind and just let people play because this is so narrow with the 1/1 counter on it. I don't really like it. I don't want to remove it. I'm happy with all of them at this point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You don't want to get too thin on that removal. You don't want to get too much on a removal either. But okay, this is the one where I know we can probably cut and be aggressive here. But this is the easily discard it, reanimates itself type card. We have reassembling skeleton. You can pay to return it from the graveyard into the battlefield tapped. It's nice because it can block once it's untapped. And that's kind of a big thing and easily sackable. Do it at any time. There's no timing restrictions on it. So as much mana as you have, you can just kind of do it. Razor Lash, Transmogrant. This one can't block, but that 6 always scared me until I really read it. But it's saying is if you pay 2 black and an opponent has 4 or more non-basic lands, which is going to happen in my play group, you can bring it back to the battlefield. There's no real timing restrictions. From your graveyard to the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it. This ability costs 4 less to activate. Um, so it's not a sorcery. It doesn't have to be on your turn. Like that's a really big thing in my opinion. Like being able to do it once per turn to like trigger a lot of these abilities, it's going to be really nice. That's why I like skeleton as well. So I think these are guaranteed. Cult conscript enters tapped, but also can be a blocker. If it's untapped, you can pay 2, return this from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only when a non-skeleton creature died under your control this turn. But if a like a zombie dies, so if this dies, I can do this over and over for as much mana as I have that turn, and then so that's a really nice thing as well. A blood soaked champion. This one has can't block, and then it has raid. So you can pay the 2, return it from the graveyard to play, but you can only do it if you've attacked. So you can do that during your attack phase before blockers are happening. You can go back and forth as many times as you have, but essentially you're only doing this on your turn. Still really like it because you can do it as much as you want, and I'll take that. Bloodghast, can't block, and then landfall, return it from the graveyard to play. I do like it because it's free. But and a fetch land will allow you to do it on an opponent's turn. But really in this deck, we're only doing it max 2 times a turn. There's no real way to put more lands into play at a time. So I still like it, but I think this is not as big. So we'll put that over there. You got Phoenix Chick. If you attack with 3 or more creatures, you may pay 2 red. If you do, return it from the graveyard to play attacking with a 1/1 counter on it. I think that's cool. Again, very restricted. Only going to be able to do it once per turn. Flying haste is pretty sweet. Can't block is pretty rough. So we'll put that in the restricted pile. Lightning Phoenix can't block. Flying haste, 3 mana, 2/2. Not terrible stats. And then at the beginning of your end step, if an opponent was dealt 3 or more damage this turn, you may pay a red. If you do, return it from your graveyard to the battlefield. Again, limited, only once per turn. Can't block. It's a little rough in my opinion. All right, Flame Wake Phoenix. There was a bit of a Phoenix theme going on at the beginning, but most of them had so many different things going on that you couldn't really focus on it. So, um, it attacks each turn if able. Flying haste for 3 mana, 2/2. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control a creature with 4 or greater power, you may pay a red. If you do, return it to the battlefield from the graveyard. Now, I like this one a little bit more because Celes is a 4 power creature. But this is still restricted. You're only doing it once per turn. It is a trigger checking for it. And so, but I do like it better than probably these two. I still like Blood Gas because hitting that land is likely, and Flame Wake Phoenix getting the 4 power is likely, especially with the 1/1 counters. So at that point, I do like what's going on there. Now, going on to the 2 surprises when I kinda test ran a lot of different types of decks, but Hakon, automatically, you are discarding this, and you have enough to be able to discard it, but you can only cast it from your graveyard. And then when it's in play, you may cast night cards from your graveyard, which is pretty cool. So you can cast Celeste from your graveyard. And then when it's ever put into the graveyard from play, you lose 2 life. That part doesn't really matter. But it's something that you can cast from the graveyard, put 1/1 counters on everything, can return Celeste. It is a win-win card in my opinion. So I really like this one, even though it's at 3 mana. And it is restricted to your turn because you are casting this. Same thing with Squee. You can cast from your graveyard, exile anything you want graveyard in this kind of deck. And it is 3 mana. You can only cast it on your turn. But I like these. Again, we'll see why. And I think I like that. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're getting pretty full for that. So we can cut these 2 Phoenixes, in my opinion. Poxwalkers. And I think it was close. And now that I'm looking at it, this is what's going to happen. I think it's not going to happen. But whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, return Poxwalkers from the graveyard to the battlefield tap. So it's a free return. And you can do it many times. And these are really nice because you can sacrifice it, cast it, bring that back. They really work well together. But this, not casting. That is an activated ability from the graveyard or a triggered ability. Um, so if it's only these 2 cards and then like Rakdos because you can cast from exile, that's not enough triggers to really let Poxwalkers do its thing. So we'll cut that. Nim Devours, pretty cool. Something that you absolutely want to discard, but +1/+0 for each artifact you control. Then you can pay a black, return Nim Devour from your graveyard to play, then sacrifice a creature, play this ability only during your turn. And that's this is the creature I want to like sacrifice. And so if I'm sacrificing other creatures that I already want to be sacrificing, it's kind of nice, but I'm only just doing this. So it seems self-defeating. Same thing with Scourge and Neltoth, but you got to sacrifice 2 creatures, but at least they're both kind of beaters. But I do think we probably cut both of these as well. So this is, and they're both not casting either. Not doing too bad. Probably happy with 8 of these. If I feel like I'm not seeing enough of them, because really only you only need like 1 or 2 of these. So you want to be able to see it. If you feel like you're getting too much, good to get rid of. But also you don't have to continue to sacrifice it. You just have to have one that you want to sacrifice. Then everything else can kind of build counters on them. So there's that. All right. The next batch that I think we can be a bit aggressive on is how to bring creatures back. Your reanimation package. Give me a second. Let's mute this. All right. Then we have Rejoin the Fight, which came for the precon, but mill 3, then starting with the next opponent in turn order. Each opponent chooses a creature. So you get like 3, 4 creatures back. 2, 3, 4. And you only get 1/1 counter on everything. 6 mana might be a little bit much for not getting everything back. So right now I think we cut it. And that's okay. We got a little room one, which is pretty cool. Whenever a creature for 3 mana Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. That's not really like that's a bonus, kinda like Garna. It gets in under the Celes trigger, if you can cast it, and then at 8 mana, you may unlock this door, return all creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. That feels like a win-win in my opinion. So you got a lot of creatures dying lightly, losing they're gonna lose life, you gain a life, and then whenever you unlock that door, you're just bringing everything back. Right now, I really like it. Hell's Caretaker, sack a creature, return something, can only do that during your upkeep. Not a bad deal because it can just bring anything back, and that's a really nice thing. It does compete with Celeste, so generally, I think I'm going to want to play this, and then Celeste, discard a bunch of cards, sacrifice anything else on the field, brings like something really big back. I think that's probably the play. That's pretty good. Liliana, Heretical Healer, comes into play, makes a 2/2 black zombie creature token. If you have any creature die, you flip it. And then really what you're probably aiming for is that -8. You get an emblem with whenever another creature dies, return that to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next end step. And so if opponents' creatures die, they come back into play under yours. It just happens once per turn, but it can happen every turn. And that I think that's the goal. You have a handful of proliferating to try and get there, but you flip it, you get 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So like it's tough. It's there, it's reachable, and I really like this card for that reason. So that's a maybe at this point. Luminous Broodmoth, if a creature you control with flying dies, bring it back. And it has flying. And if it has flying, it does not do that. So it's a pretty cool card, especially with it just sacrifice, have it come back into play, 1/1 counter on everything, has flying now. If you want to sacrifice it again, cool. If not, you got a better creature. Priest of Fell Rites, tap, sack, bring a creature from the yard into play. 1/1 counters on everything, has the unearth, so unearth it. 1/1 counters on everything, sacrifice, bring something back. 1/1 counters on everything. Seems pretty good. Puppeteer Click. This is the one combo in the deck that I'm going to allow. 5 mana, 3/2 flying, persist. And so essentially, how the persist thing happens is you sacrifice this for whatever effect that you're sacrificing it for happens. It dies, comes back into play. Everything gets +1/+1 counters. The -1/-1 counter goes away from the 1/1. There's no counters on this. You sacrifice it again. Bippity boppity boop. Your creatures have 1,000 1/1 counters on it. And the main reason why I'm going to do this is because my rule that I'm going to stop myself, as in I can sacrifice this as many times as I want, but for as many creatures that are in my opponent's graveyard, because that's what this does. When it enters, put target creature card from an opponent's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It gains haste at the beginning of the next end step. Exile it. So it's kind of a do it as many times as I can steal your um, creatures from the graveyard, make a big ol' attack, and win that way. That's more of what I'm going for on this one, and nobody's gonna be happy either way. Sidisi, Regent of the Mire. Sacrifice a creature you control with mana value X other than Sidisi, and then you can bring back something from the graveyard +1 to play. I like it at the 2 mana spot, but it is kind of tough to like. I'd much rather prefer to sacrifice a specific creature and get this one back from the yard versus like it's just I don't want to sacrifice something that I want to keep, and that has happened in some of my testing. But I still do like it. How about that? There we go. Teshar, Ancestor's Apostle, sweet card, especially with Squee and that Knight that I can cast from the graveyard. Them being legends allows you to trigger whenever you cast a historic spell, return target creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. And so you just there's a lot of value to be had there. And it's pretty cool. Storm of Souls auto include in this one, but return all creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. Each of them are 1/1 spirits with flying in addition to their types. Exile Storm of Souls. All of them get +1/+1 counters on it with Celes in play. Um, and just it just brings everything back for 6 mana. It's gonna be crazy. Victimize, sack a creature, bring 2 back from the yard. This has been fantastic. I haven't played with this card in like a decade, so I'm pretty happy I can do that. Burial Rites, another one that I'm kind of excited to play. I don't know if it's going to make it, but 5 mana, sorcery, return target creature card from the graveyard to the battlefield, pay 4, flashback it. And you know what? The more I look at it, 5 mana, 4 mana just doesn't do enough. And so I think I'd rather just have something that does more. So we can cut that. Unforgiving one, 3 mana, 2/3 menace. Whenever it attacks, return target creature card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the number of modified creatures you control. You're going to have a lot. Most, if not all, your creatures are 5 mana or less. So if you have Celes, Unforgiven one, and 3 other creatures, you're going to bring back something from the graveyard and it's going to do some work. Goblin Engineer, and I do think I've cut enough artifacts, but I would love to do Goblin Engineer and Goblin Welder and just like swap your artifacts back and forth that are creatures. Modular would be really cool with this, and just keep on gaining more 1/1 counters. But I think they're both just kind of done in the deck, so we can cut those. Lifeline. Whenever a creature is put into a graveyard, from play, return that creature from your graveyard to play at the end of the turn. And so this is just a one-time occurrence at the end of every turn. All your creatures would come back, especially since you have sacrificing current control. It's a great way to bring your creatures back after a wrath. Lifeline is a great card. And it should be making the deck. Smile at Death, 5 mana enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, return up to 2 target creature cards with power 2 or less with a 1/1 counter on it. I've really liked this. There are enough creatures that like having the 1/1 counters. Like, it's the opposite of the persist cards. I have a lot of different cards that just like the 1/1 counters being put on them, and they start off with a low power, and I bring them back, and they get counters on them, trigger, trigger. Um, it's been really nice. Valkyrie's Call, 5 mana enchantment. Whenever a non-angel creature dies, bring it back into play with a 1/1 counter on it. Flying, it's an angel. It's very much a luminous brood moth, and I really like this in some of the testing. I'm impressed with it. And Chthonian Nightmare. If you have creatures to sacrifice and you want to bring back, um, I love this card. It's so good. Um, that's all I'm saying. I love it in Tavol, and I think I love it here with a lot of those creatures that I can just sacrifice and bring back. Token decks would really like this too. So let's go with some of the cards that I really, really like. I do like these. I like Unforgiven one, Victimize, Storm. I like Teshar. So I said that I don't like Sidisi, and I think I like Nightmare better with a similar situation, but doesn't feel as situational. Sidisi can be cut. Puppeteer Click seems cool. Priest, Luminous, Hell's Caretaker. And then honestly, these, if I'm looking at them, are just more work. And it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's already, I need to cut from this stuff as well. Let's cut these two. Unfortunately, I was kind of excited to do Liliana. I don't know how that's going to go, but we'll go from there. So we have 12. Let's kind of look at what style of reanimation it is. Sacrifice to bring back, die to come back. A little bit. That's much more like a victimize, right? Luminous is like that. Same thing with Valkyrie. I think that's like that. This is I like Storm Soul. I think that's in. I have really liked the Tayshar play because it's basically I'm casting like Squee, one counter on everything, bring back something with Tayshar, one counters on everything, swing for 4. Like that feels pretty good. Makes everything with flying a threat. So Storm of Souls, I think, is absolutely in, and I think these two are really in for the cheap ones. I like those. Like I said, I like Tayshar. I like the Puppeteer Click potential, just game winner. Um, I like how this is caring about modified creatures, and it's very on theme. So we're kind of there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I do really like. I love these two, even though they're just like once, and then the creature meets that. I just don't think I don't have a lot of ETBs, if that makes sense. Like if I had ETBs, I think I would like this better. I do though. The 1/1 counters. Ugh. Keep those two. I haven't cut much here, have I? All right. 1, 2, 3 competition. I think Lifeline is the one that's getting cut here, and we're just down to 11 at this point, aren't we? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. All right, move on. Few more cards at this point, then we'll break down to the CMC, the curve. Animation module, whenever you put a 1/1 counter on one or more counters on a creature, pay 1, create a token. This is the one. I think this would be great for the deck. I just want to talk about it. But essentially, you put a 1/1 counter on 5 creatures. You can pay 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and make 5 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature tokens. Um, it cares about putting one or more counters on a permanent you control. So if you put them on multiple permanents, those are all separate triggers. And so this card's great for this deck, especially in casual. You're going to go wide pretty quick. But like I said earlier, I don't want to do tokens, so I'm going to cut this off the board. Reluctant role model, pretty cool. At the beginning of your, I don't care about that part, but whenever this or another creature you control dies, if it had counters on it, put those counters on up to one target creature. Um, and that's pretty cool because basically I can sacrifice everything's going to have a counter on it, so that can move over to somewhere else. And if any of them die, they just can move over to something else. It's instantaneous. I really like that aspect. Um, so I like that part. And then we have resourceful defense. Whenever a permanent you control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put those counters on target permanent you control. Like it's nice to be able to just, if there's a wrath, put all those counters on a land, and then you can pay 5 to move them onto a creature when you have that available. Um, or something like this where creature dies, move those counters onto another creature, and then just it's nice. It's very much like a modular effect, I think, and I wanted that. Now, weirdly, I don't have the Ozolith in, because that only triggers at upkeep. And so if you load everything onto the Ozolith like it wants you to, and then somebody destroys it, you got no benefit whatsoever. And it only goes on, it's pretty cool. Ozolith is great. Don't get me wrong, but you have to make cuts and it didn't make it. So those two are cool. Harmonic Prodigy, insane in this deck. Did we said that it's a wizard, so it's going to double trigger ETBs, discard as many cards as you want, draw as many cards, do it again, and then whenever a creature comes into play, 1/1 counters on everything, do it again. Um, it just makes it crazy. So auto fill. I don't want to talk about that one yet. Virtual loyalty. It's kind of a token maker. I don't want to do that. I don't care about that. It's the 5 mana. At the beginning of your end step, put a 1/1 counter on everything and untap those creatures. Pseudo vigilance. You have creatures with tap abilities. Um, I really like this in here for just separation of Celeste putting the counters on there. Same thing with Virtual Loyalty and Cathar's Crusade. Same thing. It feels like a double up on Celeste's counters, and it just can win games, right? And then we have Filigree Vector, and this is something that I've been debating on cutting as well. But when ETBs put a 1/1 counter on any number of target creatures you control, and then you can sacrifice another artifact to proliferate. And I like that proliferate, but I definitely cut Liliana. That's something I want to proliferate. And I like the proliferation at instant speed, so it can happen on other people's turns a lot easier, so that you can have those triggers that are only like once per turn happen more than once per turn. Um, but I think we do cut this. I don't have a lot of artifacts to sacrifice. I think it's not consistent. I don't have like a lot of ETBs. So I think we get rid of it. I like those two. And then the last two, which are pretty sweet. The deck started with putting a lot of damage on, like building up creatures when they die, deal that damage. Um, and it's just like Jury, Dread Horde, something or other. But we're gonna land on these two. I like these both in here. But Gal, Feral Youth, 2 mana, 2/2. Whenever it attacks, put a 1/1 counter on it. And then at the beginning of each end step, if a card left your graveyard this turn, Gao deals damage equal to its power to each opponent. If you have a bunch of cards leaving your graveyard and putting 1/1 counters on him, it's going to do more damage. I just really like it in this deck. And then Fairy Blade Crafter, 3 mana, 2/2 flyer. Whenever that part doesn't matter, but whenever this fairy dies, each opponent loses X life, and you gain X life, where X is its power. It's nice to be able to it's easy to cast, and then you can sacrifice it. Everybody loses life, maybe bring it back. You got a little play with that, or it's an easy discard to bring back. It's nice. All right, we cut plenty. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 30, 23, 24. Whew. We might only have like 10, 15 more to cut. All right, let's do our curve. Let's just see kind of where everything lands. And then we'll give a count. 5. That where everything's landing. 3, 2. So I always like to see where the curve is. I do feel like I'm kind of high in that 5 spot, but we'll see. That's why I do this. And I'm sure we always like to use Moxfield, but I always like to look at my cards. I like holding them. I like feeling them in my hands. I like real things. I need to go print out some pictures at my, Kodak moments. And then, yeah, I'm feeling a little fat at that 5 spot at this point. I might have them all, but we didn't want to cut mana. 4s. 3 2s. 3. 2s. Yeah. We're gonna have to cut at 5. 2, 1, and 2. Give me a second. All right. I don't have anything above 6. So, like I was saying earlier, I don't have any creatures above 5, so that's kinda nice. But Storm of Souls is absolutely in here at the highest CMC. We're keeping that. Um, we have Cavalier of Flame. Um, I like that for that draw. That looting effect is really nice. I like that for the 1/1. Like, absolutely, I think that's in. I think all will be one. Damning Verdicts, Constable. Then we have, I think the counters are in. Cathar's Crusade, absolutely in. I think Puppeteer Click as a game ender can be kind of fun. It might be just a one-time thing and then I take it out, but for now, it's in. Rakdos's Muscle. Like I said, hit that 5 spot, like Celes into discarding, drawing some cards, and then Smile at Death feels pretty good. Virtual Loyalty. That's every turn at the end of your end step. So I'm just trying to think like, do I like this better? I need to make cuts, but putting 1/1 counters on everything and then proliferating is kind of nice, but I'm really, really just +1/+1 counters. So I'm not proliferating anything special. I kind of like Rakdos. That was one that I saw today and I added into the list and I was like, that's pretty cool. I think at this point we're gonna keep Rakdos as muscle. The other thing is like whenever you discard anything that's not a creature and you just trying to look at cards, it's kind of bad. Um let's see here. Is this something? I mean, it makes everything a threat. It doesn't really work with Broodmoth, but I mean, at that point, who really cares? Nobody's going to stop you. Let's do that. I think that's going to be a game breaker. um, so it might be like the competition between the. I that might go away. The only thing is if people start targeting Celeste, virtual loyalty is just going to be really nice to plop it down and be able to put those 1/1 counters on things. Yikes! Oh boy, I cut nothing. There we go. That's how good I am at this. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's okay. That's all right. Things are okay. 4 spot, pretty thin, so I don't know how many I'm really worried about there. Um, I will admit that Sifter of Skulls and Pitiless Plunder is not something that I love in this spot. And but I also am pretty thin on my ramp. I could potentially I don't have the talismans in here, and I generally do like them. That's something that I could potentially cut and just move a little bit quicker, like Celeste on turn 3. Just because I'm not really looking for death triggers. Like let's be honest, like Teysa would be really good in a death trigger deck like this. Um, and then there's the Phyrexian that can double death triggers as well, and Matsoon, the new one from Final Fantasy, the equipment. Um, but these two don't really do it for me at that 4 spot. And if I have to, I'm just gonna choose one, and I think Plunderer goes. I'll keep the tokens that can sacrifice themselves for mana, because really the treasures aren't doing anything in the extra in the deck. 1 cut. There we go, baby. But everything else I kinda like. Kinda like all that. 3 spot, that feels thick. 1 spot seems pretty low. Alright, Staff of Completion, lots of benefits there. Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Um, Let's see here. I did really like the minus or the discarding cards to draw cards, and I think I added some of the lower stuff in. I do like that that creature becomes less and less vulnerable as the game goes on. Can't really redo like I don't have a lot of ETB creatures. That is a little bit of the problem. Like none of these I would want to oh, maybe a constable or the gargantuan would be nice or cavalier flames. Okay, 3 cards would be nice in that 5 spot. Maybe the mana guys, maybe creating another Midnight Reaper, sack some creatures would be nice. Okay, I don't hate it. I mean, Fable is really, really good. We'll keep that in. Brass's Tunnel Grinder, it does work, it does well. Uh, Nikara Liar Scavenger and Midnight Reaper kind of fill in the same spot. And I probably like them just because they come in under Celeste, but it's like if I have both in my hand, I'll keep this, discard this to Celeste just for maybe on brand, maybe not. I don't know. Shit. Probably worth it. Ghost Rider's pretty nice being able to come back from the graveyard. Warring Triad. Still like that. Pawn of Ulamog. If I have Sifter of Skulls, Pawn is going to be in there. Space Marine, Crucible, Fanatical, Devotion, Attrition, Flamewake Phoenix, Hack-On, and Squee. I really do like them. Victimize, Unforgiving One, Resourceful. Yeah, yep. Let's look through that real quick. I'm going to probably go through and look for a couple of different things. Like how many sack outlets do I have? Stuff like that. All right, 2 spot. Just a discard and draw. Knight's Whisper. Simple, seeing more cards. Dusk Legion Duelist. Mr. Gutsy. I don't necessarily care about the junk tokens. It's allowing you to like cast from exile a little bit, which is kind of nice for the Poxwalker. But I think for now, maybe we just cut this. We're going for sure. Axe Guard. We're gonna keep Gutsy in. Axe Guard, Knight, Milliken, Ornithopter. Signet, Mindstone. We already cut Plunderer. We really, you know what? We'll leave it in because it's going to be a talisman, so it doesn't really matter. But Runaway, yep. Scholar, yep. Ox, Spirit. I do like both those. I think we got to cut Shinewind. We do have 2 sources to get rid of non-creature permanents. A third one that's really limited probably just doesn't matter. Blood Gas, we need these creatures that kind of come back, and then a lot of them do some good work. Returning stuff, Reluctant Role Model, Harmonic, and Gao. And then that 1 spot, top, Looting, Sentinel, Viscera Seer, Soul Ring, Initiate. Yep. All right, let's give it a count. I'm going to look at how many sack outlets we have. We don't need a billion, but 11, 12, 20. 20. So we're at 70 cards here. We're pretty darn close. Normally I cut it off. I'm gonna go through and look at SAC outlets and then probably just call it a night. If there's anything that you want to see, let me know. And but there's only one of y'all on. I'll tweak this down and I'll try and get a spotlight up sometime late July. Probably not. Never mind. SAC outlet. Bop, 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 bop. All right. There we go. Do, 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 do. Let's see here. Let's see here. Like if I don't have enough SAC outlets, then Valkyrie's call just doesn't do enough. Like it needs those SAC outlets. I think I have 2 lands that like SAC outlets for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Once per turn. Whenever I want. Mana. Okay. Kind of, well, this is probably really just a mana one. I like that's once kind of just looking at this and I think Rakdos is interesting. I might have to cut that later. I think Viscera Seer has a shot or Fanatic. Yeah, I already got rid of a lot of protection. I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. I don't think I gotta get rid of much. Probably got to cut something in that 5 CMC spot. A couple of them might be pretty thick. I don't know, but there's only about 5, 6ish cards that need to be cut at this point. I don't need to keep going. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Let me know which way you went and enjoy. Final Fantasy was pretty sweet. Have a good night, y'all. Bye.